I've been looking forward to talking to this guy for the entire first hour. We talked about the fact that we're going to speak about debt. We talked about the fact we're going to speak about documents, the Biden classified documents, the Trump classified documents, and maybe, if there's a minute, we'll even get to Davos, where the world's economic elite meet. He's David Cay Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner and co-founder of DCReport.org. He is now, as you know, he announced that he's stepping back from DC Report from an active daily role, but he's still very much involved. Hey, David, Happy New Year and all that stuff.
Hello, Mark.
We're excited that you're here, and boy, you couldn't be here on a more important week as the rhetoric around defaulting on the U.S. debt and not raising the debt limit has reached a fever pitch. Can you explain to us, please, how this works, how this debt limit thing works, why this is important, and from there we'll talk about what might likely happen.
Well, the only reason we have a debt limit is because of a statute that Congress passed. It's not required in the Constitution, and indeed, 14th Amendment says that the debts of the United States shall not be questioned. Unfortunately, that's never been tested in the courts, but I think the language is quite clear. Shall is mandatory language. What's happened is that the Republicans, who have been utterly unsuccessful in trying to reduce spending, in part because they have been enormously big spenders under Ronald Reagan, both Bushes and Donald Trump, want to use reaching this artificial limit on the government's borrowing as a way to build support. And it's exposing a fundamental tension in the Republican Party. Republicans have long been identified with business everywhere except for the Wall Street trading crowd. Well, putting the full faith and credit of the United States in jeopardy, and we make a fortune in the fact that we are the world's reserve currency. People all over the world hold dollars. So that's just profit to our country, basically. If you shut down the government, business has all sorts of problems that arise, trying to get approvals, trying to deal with regulatory issues. And every time the Republicans have shut down the government in the last 25 years, well, guess what? The business community has been very upset about it. But to yahoos, to the Marjorie Taylor Greens and Lauren Boeberts, who know nothing of economics, don't have any idea what they're talking about, this is an opportunity to beat up on big, bad, ugly Washington.
And the spending that they're talking about, these are all talking points, or is there? They talk about military spending. You know, I think we way overspend on the military. It's absurd. I mean, it's literally absurd how much we spend. And on these weapon systems, many of them don't work, and much of that money doesn't ever leave the Beltway, as we've discussed. So you can have a reasonable conversation about that. But I feel as that these are just talking points. These aren't. There isn't really it's almost as though this is a fundraising thing more than an actual policy discussion.
Yeah. This is not serious discussion by grown-ups who studied economics and fiscal policy and understand what they're doing. This is, I agree with you very much. It's a fundraising experience and game playing that's going on. But let's be clear what they want to do. The Kevin McCarthy Republicans and the Donald Trump Republicans, who are not exactly the same people, they want to kill Social Security. They want to kill Medicare. They believe that the only proper functions of the federal government are a military, which I agree with you is not only vastly more expensive than it needs to be, but a great deal of it is focused on refighting World War II instead of looking to the future where cyberspace is much more important. They want to eliminate many of the agencies that keep us safe, food and drug, for example. You know, if we all lived in one village and somebody makes unsafe sausage, well, it's real simple. We go tell the guy after somebody dies from eating his sausage, do it again, and we're going to get rid of you. But your food comes from many places all over the country, and we have to have systems to track when there's something wrong or people die. They want to get rid of that. They want to get rid of all sorts of spending that makes it possible to generate all of this wealth in America, because you have to have a foundation of commonwealth in order to create private wealth. You need roads and bridges and highways and educated people and a civil justice system and a criminal justice system. And you need vaccines and a whole lot of other things if you're going to build private wealth, which they claim to be in favor of, but they certainly seem to want to hobble private wealth creation.
So, as you look at this situation, remind us then, when does this entire situation need to be resolved? In other words, how close are we to the brink?
Well, later this week, Thursday or Friday, we will technically hit the debt ceiling from the government's reissuance of debt. There's a website you can go to, Debt to the Penny, run by the Treasury Treasury, and it'll tell you every day what the federal debt is. The government can then begin to do a variety of actions. It cannot spend money in certain areas. It can borrow money from one fund to another. Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, who's an extraordinarily great economist and who's married to one of the best economists in the world, a Nobel Prize winner, she says that we can probably get to May or June before we run into real serious trouble. So you're going to see the Republicans, especially in the House, try and insist on some cuts somewhere. And if you're my age and you get Social Security, you should be deeply disturbed. If you have government financed health care, Medicare, if you're my age, or Medicaid, if you're poor, you should be all over these people, because when the government makes promises and taxes you for your whole life for something, we shouldn't then say, well, we're going to snatch this away. And what are you going to cut? I mean, the last time around, they cut things like replacing mold-filled housing for military families, and they stopped spending that money. That what you want to do? I mean, they have not articulated, except in the broadest strokes, what they want to do and how they would achieve it, because this is all falderall.
Well, and so the falderall part of it, I get, as we've said. I mean, it's all talking points. There are no real policies that are being forwarded. But I feel as though, and somebody mentioned in the chat, that it's a game of chicken with one crew not really caring if there's a collision. Is that really the case, David? How do you handicap this? Are they really going to be okay shutting the government down again?
Oh, I think that at least the House Republicans will be fine with shutting the government down. It's very clear that Mitch McConnell, whatever you think of Mitch McConnell, he is a serious person. He is a brilliant strategist in politics. And on the other chamber, you have a leader, Kevin McCarthy, who literally nobody can find any indication that he has any ideology or philosophy except I'm entitled to be speaker. And you have all of these far out House members because of gerrymandering of districts, like Matt Gaetz and Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Biggs, who just today said we should round up and deport every person who is in this country without permission. They're crazy. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, Mark, except these folks are literally crazy, and they are pursuing, or at least telling the public that they're pursuing ideas that are never going to happen, but they could, ruin the faith and credit of the United States government. And that will, for the rest of history, as long as our country exists, we will suffer for these idiots doing that if they succeed.
We've had the downgrade before, I think, haven't we, David?
We did. Moody's downgraded the debt, but I mean, I don't think that amounted to anything. That was the debt rating service trying to make a point.
I see.
I believe, to the Republicans, though it wasn't reported that way. But we didn't actually fail to meet our obligations. And that's what matters. And that's why the 14th Amendment matters. These people who say, well, I'm a constitutional Republican, well, fine. The 14th Amendment says the debts of the United States shall not be questioned.
Does the House has to approve the debt limit, though? I mean, it is in the hands of these people who you talk about as crazy. I mean, I think it's a perfectly defensible position, but those are the people that we got to count on to raise this debt limit?
Well, all you have to do to get it passed is, remember, the Republicans only have a 4-vote majority. And if George Santos, who's looking more and more like a Russian agent, is removed, it would be only 3. So all that the Democrats need to do is get a handful of grown-up Republicans. And there's plenty of responsible respectable, grown-up Republicans in the House. They're just not the ones in the forefront. All you have to do is get a handful of them to vote to raise the debt ceiling. And I think at the end of the day, come April, May, June, that's what you're going to see. The Democrats and a small number of grown-up, serious people on the Republican side in the House.
Tell me about Santos quickly. Is Santos serving a political purpose for the Democrats because he essentially has become this, he's become a political football that they can toss around and, they can get on TV talking about him?
Oh, I think it's terrible for the Republic, but clearly Santos is for the Democrats the Christmas gift that gives again twice a day. But new stuff keeps coming out about this guy. I've tweeted about, do we really know that he's George Santos? Do we really know that he's an American citizen? But these connections to Russians and the finances, I mean, it's pretty clear that he's committed serious felonies about money. And if you listen to him when he talks to friendly sources, one of the things that becomes quickly apparent is this is a guy who has no conscience whatsoever. He is just your classic sociopath, and he will contradict himself and say whatever at the moment he thinks is useful, and he just makes up the fantastic lies all the time. He's like he's like a drunk in a bar who tells you, well, yeah, I played once for the Yankees for one inning in 1979.
Well, clearly, I mean, he's got 10-foot pole marks all over him,
Yeah.
Tom says Santos is a pariah and pariah is a ding word. So Santos is a ding word. All right, I'll ding pariah. So now let me just go to the document situation. I mean, this is a bizarre story. Look, I don't mean to in any way suggest that there is an equivalence between what's going on with Joe Biden and with what's happened with Donald Trump, where you had obvious obstruction, you had lawyers lying, you had Trump lying, you had documents being moved. You really had this act of, as I say, obstruction.
I suspect what's going to come out eventually here with the special prosecutor on Biden is that Biden and probably Obama and Clinton and the Bushes and Ronald Reagan took not the very highest level secret documents like human intelligence, would identify sources and methods and people, but all sorts of documents that are overclassified. That's been a scandal in Washington for, 50 or 80 years. There's been very loose handling of these, and they haven't kept logs. Here, we gave the president this document. Let's get it back, as we do with library books. You get a notice of the library. You didn't return this book. And that's a problem, and we should be upset about the casual nature of this. But in matters of national security documents, the whole ballgame is intent. We've prosecuted lots of people, but we only prosecute people who lie and deny and who act in bad faith. And nobody can accuse Joe Biden of that. They can certainly accuse him accurately of having a comms operation, a communications office that blundered beyond belief. They should have immediately done searches, found everything they could, put it all out at once, and they should have done it immediately after the election. I can justify they found something 6 days before the election. I don't have any problem with any president, including Donald Trump, putting it out on the 9th, the day after the election. But there's real sloppiness in handling even low-level security documents, and Congress, I'm sure, is going to pass a law that's going to be tougher about this. And by the way, that's going to cost you more money as taxpayers, because you're going to have people with high-level security clearance whose job is to make sure, okay, we handed it over. Where is it? We got to get it back.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, that system should have already been in place. I mean,
I
get that it's going to cost us money, but I mean, it's absurd that these guys can skate with this stuff. And I get it. Okay, that it's not literally Joe Biden. It was somebody in his, as you say, his comms office. Okay, great. But that shouldn't happen either.
Mark, I want to be clear. I think it was Joe Biden who took these things in his valise and went home with them. The comms office problem, the White House press operation problem, is that they should have gotten as soon as they found one document, they should have said, oh, we need to do a complete sweep and find everything and put out once. They shouldn't have these 3 drips and drabs. That's just, death by 1,000 leaks and announcements. And it's amateur hour. I've been trying to get a document from the White House that's public record, And the responses I get from Jean-Pierre and her subordinates have nothing to do with the question I asked. They send me back these responses that are as if I asked a totally different question. They're not, frankly, a very good, very polished operation.
I am going to ding valise, which I feel is a great word, and I haven't heard it in so long. Wow, David Cay Johnston. I love that. David, last thing before we say goodbye for you for today, this Pulitzer Prize winner and co-founder of DCReport.org, the world elites, I mean, the economic elites, they're meeting in Davos, Switzerland. What the hell is this thing?
Well, there's been a forum for, I guess, close to 40 years now, where very super wealthy people are invited to discuss the world's problems. And if you think that Bill Gates or even George Soros knows what we need to do to deal with poverty in the world, I have a bridge I'd like to sell you and be connecting Brooklyn to Manhattan. But it is an opportunity for these folks to talk about their common concerns behind closed doors and to put on a show that they really care about what's going on in the rest of the world. And of course, journalists just, are drawn to this like moths to a flame, spend a lot of money to send reporters there. I mean, watch the reporters on CNBC, CNN, read the business page accounts in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal about these meetings. And I think fawning is a reasonable word to describe the coverage.
Yeah, and I'm losing track of the economic elites. There are the protests going on. There are a lot of climate protests related to this because a lot of these economic elites get their money from plundering the earth.
Yep. Yeah, well, energy, mining, bad practices, and of course, what I call economic pollution are key aspects of people who have greatly concentrated wealth. If you can set up a system where you take away people's job benefits like their pensions and their health care plans or strip them down to nothing, what you're really doing is polluting the economy. You're shoving those costs that should be yours on your business off onto the taxpayers. You don't hear that at Davos. And people like me don't get invited to go to Davos because we're going to ask the questions they don't want to have asked.
That's a great point, that the media that's there is there, as you suggest, to sort of fawn over these super rich people. And I'm losing track of the super rich conferences. There's one in Davos. There's the Aspen Institute. They have two more, I think, in places I can't recall now.
There's one in Sun Valley for American media building.
Thank you. That's it. Yes. Yeah. I don't know. It's not wrong that these people control the world in many ways. I mean, it's wrong. It shouldn't be. It's that way wrong, but it's not incorrect.
When Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations, it was published in 1776, and it's still in print. He observed that he was referring to the ownership class, seldom do business owners get together, but to engage in a conspiracy to push down wages and raise prices. And he said, you can't prevent such meetings. And I agree with him. These people are free to meet, but neither should government do anything to facilitate this. Well, American taxpayers spent a small fortune sending American economic, Justice Department, military, and other officials to Davos to meet with these folks. And, I think Adam Smith got it right. They're going to meet, but don't facilitate it. Don't help it. Wow.
Yeah. So well said. From Adam Smith. David, so great to visit with you. We look forward to Tuesdays. So glad that you're still such a part of our life. And DCReport.org is the website that David co-founded, and you can find his books everywhere. I suggest you grab any David Cay Johnston book and you needle drop it. Just open it anywhere, and man, you will learn something. It is wild. We'll talk to you soon, my friend, next week. David Cay Johnston, everybody. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.